Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. I'm Harvey Couch. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voter, to hear directly from the candidates who want to lead our community. We took questions from viewers via email and social media, and now we get to hear the candidates' views on issues that are important to us. This is all leading up to the general election on May 19th. Let's welcome today's guest, Brandon Muravchick, Democratic candidate for sheriff.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself, what maybe motivated you to run for sheriff.
Starting out, I'm born and raised here in Franklin County. I was born in 1981. I'm 45 years old. I've been a resident of Franklin County my entire life. I graduated from Franklin County High School in 1999. After high school, I was raised through my work ethic. Is one of the biggest things that I'm all about is, community and my work ethic. When I was 14 years old, I started my professional career. I began work as an umpire, and that was the first job that I held. And learning to be responsible and to get that daily paycheck or that weekly paycheck from the city was one of the big things. And then that moved into other things that I worked for. I worked for the pet store here in Frankfort, and then I became the pet store. Then I moved to the Starway Fun Park. So those were my short things that I did, and through high school to make a little extra money while I was going to school and to develop those relationships with people in the community. Once I graduated high school, I realized that I've always wanted to be a police officer. My father was a state trooper. My mother worked for the state police in various positions as a civilian employee, and that's law enforcement is a career that I've always wanted, and it's all been about service. When I was 20 years old, I was approached down at State Stadium, and one of the guys said, "Hey, I think you'd be a good coach." And this was around 2001. And I said, "Coach, I'm not a coach." I said, I like to umpire. I enjoy being around the kids, and I don't know if I'd be a good coach. Well, that started in 2000, and I've been coaching ever since. I'm in my 26th year of coaching here in this community, and I can't tell you the amount of kids that I've coached here in Franklin County, whether it's softball, baseball, basketball, just being involved in the community is big. Again, to follow in my law enforcement careers, I always wanted to that law enforcement aspect. And so then I joined the Lexington Police Department. I applied for numerous agencies across the Commonwealth. Law enforcement was kind of one of those careers where you had to apply at numerous places all across because of the long process, the hiring process to get hired. And I think I ended up applying at almost 12 to 15 different places, and I took many interviews, went many different places to try to apply, and Lexington was the first place of employment that called and asked me to accept the job. And so that's where I went, and that's where I've spent the next 18 years as a law enforcement officer in Lexington. My family is devoted in community service, and I think that is the biggest reason why I want to lead Franklin County as their next sheriff. I love the community. I love the people. I just love to serve, and that's what I'm all about.
Okay. So obviously service is a big part, and you've got your experience as an umpire. But
yes, sir.
What do you think of as sort of the most important role that the sheriff here in Franklin County plays?
The sheriff takes on a lot of roles, even outside of law enforcement. I mean, the biggest thing that the sheriff's going to do is being fiscally responsible with our taxpayers' money. And the sheriff's department takes a lot of money in when it comes to all of our county taxes and different things, and getting those funds distributed appropriately and just being fiscally responsible. And I know that our sheriff's office has done a wonderful job in the past of maintaining that fiscal responsibility and getting that there, but that's probably the biggest challenge that faces the sheriff's department, is making sure that money's collected, that money is brought in on time, and that money is distributed evenly, so that way our community gets that money back to them in different ways, whether it's the roads, whether it's public service, whether it's public works, whether it's just serving them through the sheriff's office with the people that the sheriffs and the deputies are out in the community, and letting them be seen. And that's the biggest thing.
Okay. What about your leadership style? Obviously culture of the sheriff's office is a big thing. It reflects the leader at the top. How would you describe that?
When it comes to my leadership style, of course, I'm a coach, and coaching is one of the biggest things that I like to do. But as a coach, you try to build a family atmosphere, and that atmosphere is one that everybody can strive in. You know, when I think about family, I think about people that I trust, people that I can go and talk to, where I'm comfortable at. I don't think a place of work or business is one of those places where you don't want to go to every single day, but building an atmosphere where people strive. And not only just where people strive, but you have to teach them how to strive and give them opportunities to grow. As a coach, showing them the ways or guiding them the ways and providing them with the tools that allow our young officers, young deputies, even the civilian employees that the sheriff's office has, to grow in their different positions that they may have. So that way that they can become more experienced and develop into leaders themselves.
Mm-hmm. Most folks, or most of the candidates rather, that are running in this race, you guys probably a lot of common views in a lot of areas. Do you think anything? Can you think of anything specifically that might set you apart from other candidates in the primary?
I think a lot of it is about my leadership style. I'm very firm. I enjoy work. I enjoy serving. I enjoy being out in the community. And I think that's going to be the biggest part, is about being visible and being seen. I believe in a sheriff's office, everybody should know our sheriff's deputies by name. Everybody should see them. I'm really big in the schools. You know, I've coached in our schools here in Franklin County for the past 20 years. And being a part of the school system is one of my biggest enjoyments of life, is leadership in our youth. And our youth are important to us and how they grow. I hope that as a leader of young people, that I can strive with our community and I can show that our community can grow. Also working with businesses. Businesses are very important for our community to grow, because it brings money into our community. But that there's many different things that I think that set us apart, but being visible and being seen. And then when it comes down to enforcement, I think that our agencies here in Franklin County have taken a little bit laid back approach when it comes to enforcement. And, it's time to ramp up that enforcement. It's time for us to target those that are targeting our elders when it comes to scams. It's time to target those that are targeting our youth. Whether it's those that are drug trafficking, whether it's those that are trying to scam our elders for businesses. Those are the tough things that here as an agency that we need to go after and we need to enforce.
You talked about the youth and working with the schools. What role do you see the sheriff's office having in school safety beyond resource officers?
Number one, resource officers they're amazing. And here in Franklin County, we have one of the most premier school resource officer programs in the state. With that being said, there's so many resource officers that you hear different things about them, where they sing and where they go into the programs. And matter of fact, I just did a program at Weekday Community Preschool, and where we did the banana dance. And those kids, I got a text from the teachers, and they were like, "Hey, we had to do the banana dance after you left." But school safety is so important, and it's developing different initiatives and becoming innovative in the ways that we can protect our young people. There's different incidents that are happening all across the country when it comes to those different incidents inside the school, and we have to make sure that our youth are safe. And whatever we can do to protect them, whether that's bringing different educational programs back, and not all programs are for Franklin County. I know there's other people that are really involved in the DARE program, or really involved in safe neighborhoods or safe kids. It's whatever program fits Franklin County the most. And that might not be the DARE program. That might not be Safe Kids, or that might not be any other type of initiative, but you need to work with community leaders to find the program that fits Franklin County the best. I've been a DARE instructor since 2015, and the DARE program has been great to me. I remember my DARE officer when I was growing up, and of course my DARE officer was always great to me, and one of those that we can see in the community, and that very friendly. But how do we get into the community? Is it the DARE program? Is it other programs? Because the DARE program is not might not be the best fit for our community.
So obviously you think you would say that the office engaging with the young people building trust, sort of trying to prevent crime before it starts.
Yes, sir.
Important.
It's all about being visible, and it's kind of like the broken windows method. You know, if you go somewhere into a community and you fix the small broken windows and you don't allow those small little things to escalate into big things, and you can take care of those things by being visible, by being seen, by making those contacts, by having young people to come to you and report crime. Getting community trust is huge. And, you know, in my career in Lexington, I was a neighborhood resource officer. And that's where I've learned this type of neighborhood communication with the community. And I was a community resource officer for 8 years there up in Lexington. And I had to work with council members and I had to work with different businesses to fix those small broken windows. And learning how to work with them to fix those small broken windows made our community grow. And it's bringing programs to our youth or bringing programs to people in the community that need those second chances, because we're all about second chances and making people grow, because when people strike out, they tend to fold, and that's not what we want. We want our community to grow.
Okay. So you talked about working in Lexington with elected officials. Let's talk a little bit about sort of the logistics of being the sheriff. Obviously, an important thing is independence and not being influenced by politics or personal relationships. Do you want to speak on that a little bit? How to make sure that you'll be an independent?
Absolutely. The nice thing about the sheriff's race is it really should be a nonpartisan race if you think about it. You know, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and here's the nice thing, I have support from both sides. It's not about why I'm running as a Democrat. Being here in Franklin County, born and raised as a Democrat my whole life, but I have a lot of support from both sides. And we follow a book of guidelines, you know, and that's the Kentucky Revised Statute. And it's about being fair and treating people with that responsibility. I mean, you have to be fair to everyone, and being fair is the biggest part of it.
What about spending? Obviously, you know, budgeting is a big part of the organization. How would you prioritize the spending within the sheriff's budget?
Number one, it's about safety, and it's about making those guys safe. Second off, it's about training. Giving those guys the training and the ability to do things that they can do in the future and to build on, so that way that they can be safe and they can come home to their families every night. I'm all about family. So getting those guys home safely. And then second, there's another mental health aspect that we have to think about too. You know, police officers on a daily basis, they see more incidents than most people can see in their normal life. And those types of incidents really wear on the officers, whether it's mentally or physically, and they drain them emotionally. So it's about getting those guys the support that they need. And when we talk about spending money, it's about being fiscally responsible with all that money, whether it's the taxpayers' money, whether it's money from different grants that you may get. It's about what can be the best for the agency to make that agency grow and to make sure each officer gets home safely to their family.
What about working with the fiscal court? You know, how are you going to build a good relationship with them, but also maintaining that independence that the sheriff's office needs?
I feel like I'm able to communicate with just about anybody and working with them, but I'm also willing to stand firm on decisions that are made within the sheriff's office, and to being responsible, to not let someone come in and take over your, you know, where you lean one way or to the next. It's about just taking care of people and making sure that you do the right thing with those.
What about any specific public safety challenges that you see facing Franklin County, you know, 2 or 3 that you think are the priorities, and maybe any ideas to address them?
One of them is obviously we have the drug epidemic. Everybody wants to seem like they think that drugs are hidden and they're off there. I mean, drugs are everywhere. You have to look at it and say that you can't hide from them and say that they're not here in the community, because they are. I've lost friends to the overdoses. I've lost players that have even played for me, and there's nothing that you want to see as a coach to bury one of your players. But targeting those types of individuals and making sure that we can go after those is what we need to do as a community and what we need to do as an agency to remove those.
You know, something that I've seen here in Franklin County, interdepartmental relationships, you know, between different agencies, super important. Obviously, the Frankfort Police Department, you know, is another organization, other local agencies. How will the sheriff's office work with them, sort of making sure that we have coverage across the county?
So one of the nice things about myself is I'm a law enforcement instructor for here in the state of Kentucky. I'm certified through the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council. I've been a law enforcement instructor since 2014. In Lexington, I'm the DUI coordinator for the program, so I teach the Lexington police officers the DUI, the standardized field sobriety test. With that, it grew into the drug recognition expert program, and I became a drug recognition expert. So when I became a drug recognition expert instructor, I began teaching different agencies across the state, which then in turn works with the state police, with the local city police, with the sheriff's office. I built many relationships all across Franklin County through those different experiences and through my teaching. And it doesn't just lead to local agencies. It now expands into federal agencies. I've got many different partners through Lexington that I've met with the DEA, with the FBI, with Social Security, and all those things that we work really closely with all of those different agencies, and building relationships to make sure Franklin County grows and succeeds from those.
Franklin County, includes Frankfort, but also more rural areas. How do you propose to ensure that there's sort of equitable service time, response times across the county, whether you're way out in the outskirts or in the core?
Well, being visible is number one, and it's about assignments and making sure that, again, there's times that, those deputies are going to go call to call, and, being on one side of the county and having to make it to the other. But, it's about retention and getting more officers in there and, and trying to arrange the way that the areas that they cover, that make sure everybody is covered. Growing into the businesses, when you go into a business and make sure that you're visible, make sure that you're seen, those contacts are what we need. And that's where we serve at. We don't just drive by. We need to go in and say hello. We need people to be like, oh, that's Deputy Muravchick, or oh, that's Deputy so-and-so, and actually to get that, know the deputies on a first name basis. And that will bring the deputies out into the county, out into the parts that they've never been before.
You've talked a lot about the deputies and their, the role obviously that they play in the sheriff's office. What steps would you take to ensure that they're properly trained, and then as far as accountability for actions while on duty?
So that goes back to being a law enforcement instructor, and for the past 12 years, I've taught different agencies and holding them accountable. And accountability is number one. When you look at somebody and you say, this is where we are, we document, we train, people are human. Everybody makes mistakes, but it's how you learn from those mistakes, and it's how we show the transparency, because transparency is big, and people in the community want to see transparency. They want to see what our sheriff's office is doing, whether it's praising a deputy for his actions, whether it's you have to discipline somebody for their actions of what they've done, but the community needs to know that. What is the sheriff's office doing? The sheriff's office is out there making so many traffic stops or so many different answering calls of service, whether it be burglary or theft. The community needs that transparency so they can see what's going on in our community.
You mentioned earlier substance abuse, an issue. Another issue that's come to the forefront more recently is homelessness. Do you see a role for the sheriff's office to play in helping that?
Homelessness is big, and when being a community resource officer in Lexington, I had to work with the Office of Homelessness up there, and when you go out and you see somebody that's struggling, and a lot of times you think about it and how can we help them? It's not just about putting them in jail or putting somebody and getting people in jail. There are people that need to go to jail. There are people that need that type of enforcement. There are also people that need the other type of enforcement, and that's where different agencies you can work with, and you have those relationships with the county attorney's office, with the the fiscal court, and how can you get them into rehabilitation centers, or how can you make our community stronger by getting them off the street. And that's whether we're working with programs to rehabilitate those people or get them a job, or how can you develop those relationships with business owners throughout the community. And that's kind of the broken windows method. Going back to the broken windows, you fix the small things, and you have to start small. You can't just go in and say, I'm going to tackle everything, because tackling everything is not going to happen immediately, but start small and work and grow, and use your community resources that you have, because there's all kinds of resources here in the community. You just got to find them and get to them to help you out.
Before you make your sort of final pitch here, why should voters trust you to lead law enforcement here in Franklin County?
As a lifelong Franklin County resident, I'm very passionate about this community. I'm eager to serve. I feel like my leadership style in Lexington and the things that I've learned from being in Lexington will be a benefit to this community. Growing up here, serving here, coaching here, I bring a lot of leadership, I bring discipline, I bring responsibility to the community, and I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to serve. I'm excited for the opportunity, and hopefully in May I'll get the vote.
Right. Well, now if you would just take a moment to look into the camera over here, tell our viewers what makes you the best candidate, and ask folks for their vote.
Well, when it comes time in May, I hope that you will, when you go to the polls, that you'll pull number one first off. But being from Frankfort, I'm excited about serving here in this community. I'm excited about taking on new challenges. I'm excited about building a team with the community, with the fiscal court, with everybody here, and to make businesses grow, to make families grow, to protect our youth and protect our elderly. I'm very excited, very passionate, and I hope I get your vote in May.
All right, Brandon Muravchick, where can voters learn more about you?
So I do have a Facebook page. We're on social media, Brandon Muravchick for Sheriff. I also have if you go to Brandon Muravchick for Sheriff, we have a website. You can find us on the website as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I know viewers appreciate hearing from you, and as we're heading here to the primary election day.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, it's election season, so get informed and voice your choice on May 19th. We'll see you next time here on Meet the Candidates.